I thought it would be fun to do a ranked tier list of my favorite games on the Game Boy Advance. So we are on the tier maker website. We're going to rank them S through F. Over 150 games. I've played a lot of them. So let's just get into it. I will show you how I've stacked my list so far, but as you can see, there is over 150 games that have come out on the Game Boy Advance. And I have not realized how many I haven't played. So that first row at the top you'll see is kind of a backlog. I threw a few up there that I thought, I need to get around to playing those at some point to just see how they stack up against some of the other games. Like I've played one of the Castlevanias, which I'll get to up higher on the list, as well as Final Fantasy. That game came out on a few different consoles, and they relaunched it on the Game Boy Advance as well, so you could play the original Final Fantasy 1, 2, 5, 4, 6. I think it goes up to. So I'll talk about a couple of those above as well. The Crash Bandicoot series, another great series that originally came out on the PlayStation. It carried over to some of the Nintendo games as well. So there's a few of those I wouldn't mind playing for nostalgia reasons. I've heard really good things about Lufia and Lunar. I think they're RPGs with good stories. So yeah, there's some good stories and RPGs that even came out for the Game Boy Advance, which I think I kind of grew up more with platformers during that time. I'll come back down to this bottom wall of games so you can tell me what games I'm missing and which ones you would recommend to put on my backlog or what like must be played if you're a fan of the Game Boy Advance. So I'll go over the games I didn't like first, or a couple of them that came out on the Game Boy Advance. Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku original #1 release. Awful gameplay, which is so unfortunate. I love that section of the story, the Frieza saga, and I actually have played through it and mastered it over on Retro Achievements, but it's wonky. The hitboxes feel way different than the succeeding games, which I will highly recommend on the list above. So it's kind of unfortunate that the entry point to the Dragon Ball Z series starts off with this game, because I think it would deter people from trying the other games, which I would rank them so much higher than this game. But, if you're just a super fan of Dragon Ball Z and you want to just play through that story timeline, it's available, but I still think you're better off playing like a PS2 Budokai game just to get that section of the story, because the Game Boy Advance gameplay mechanics just aren't very good on that one. The second game beside it is Chain of Memories, Kingdom Hearts. I was a super fan when the original came out. Whatever year that was, way back in the day. I remember playing it in my cousin's basement at like 2 in the morning, watching him go through Alice in Wonderland. And it was just so like mind boggling to like go from planet to planet and discover all those new things, and alongside Donald and Goofy and some of the nostalgia characters that you grew up watching Disney with. And then even they came out with the second game on the PS2 as well originally. Maybe it was 3 as well. I don't remember, because they've made remakes and such since. But then they try to cross over to all these handheld ports with Nintendo, and I did not like the adaptation to those. I mean, I was frustrated because I still wanted the story from the games, because it kind of tied in to like Kingdom Hearts 3, which also I was very, very disappointed with. But anyway, was not a fan of the Kingdom Hearts game, Chain of Memories, on the Game Boy Advance. It was more like a card game. So it went way astray from the action RPG elements that I really admired from the PS2 game. All right, we'll go up into tier C. These are just the average games that, if you're going to play Game Boy Advance, I think these would be worth playing, worth checking out, but maybe ones that I maybe wouldn't replay, if that makes sense. So probably worth playing at least once, but for me, one and done is okay. Some of the Crash games, again, maybe I would rank them higher at times depending on how I'm feeling. because still to me, I still kind of want to go back to the PlayStation original Crash. Um, but also, I know they've made really good improvements with some of the sequels as well as the story. So definitely worth checking out the Crash games. They're iconic for the PlayStation retro stuff. And I'm happy that Nintendo created a few on their portable handhelds. Lilo and Stitch is a kind of a new one I played earlier this year, was it, or last year, for a retro achievement game. It was a fun little platformer. If you're a fan of the series back in the day, I think it's a cute game. Kind of, I think you can shoot your enemies and go through the levels. It's a platformer type, so it's kind of fun. Worth checking out. Same with Wild Thornberries, another kind of nostalgic game for me. I grew up watching Nickelodeon and wishing I could go on adventures like Eliza on that game and have a talking monkey talk to animals. That was kind of fun. So if you're a fan of the show or you have nostalgic memories of watching the show, definitely worth playing that game. Super Mario 3, a lot of people's favorite on the original Nintendo. I would even say I was a bigger fan of Super Mario 2, which I had also didn't play for years later. But again, a lot of people's favorite. It's cool that Nintendo brought those to a portable device like the Game Boy Advance. So if you haven't played Super Mario 3 on the original, it's kind of nice to have on a portable. So go ahead and play that. Kirby's Dream Land, maybe I'd even rank that as a B. That does have some, like, sometimes I feel like replaying that game because as far as the Kirby series go, that one's also highly talked about. A lot of people seem to love Dreamland. Yoshi's Island, again, kind of a report of another successful game that's now on a portable device. Might as well check it out. And another Crash game I added. All right, let's go to tier B. So we have A and S tier above this. Castlevania, what is it? Area of Sorrow. The text is kind of small. I also played for a retro of achievements last year and a hacked version or a modded version of that game. It's pretty fun. I was impressed. If you enjoy kind of more horror themed, like Dracula, vampire monsters, and you can go through the levels, get different weapons, and yeah, I don't know. It was a fun platformer. I wasn't too familiar with it until last year, but that game was good enough that I probably would play it again or play at least the sequels to it. It intrigued me enough. Sword of Mana, similar thing. I've heard a lot of good praises about it. It's an action RPG, which is one of my favorite genres to play. What can I really say about or remember about it? I remember it had potential. All right, so I think it's definitely worth checking out if you're just looking at action RPGs on the Game Boy Advance. But I think there's going to be sequels after that game that might hit harder or be a little bit more fun. That's just how I remember feeling about it. It's like, I want to like it, but I think I've played better. Or there should be better games that other fans of that series have recommended. Naruto Council and Council 2. I'm a big fan of the Naruto anime, so I loved replaying it on some of the games, the series. Again, there might be better, newer games to capture that story now. Like some that came out on like the PS2 and PS3 has some really good Naruto games. So if you're just trying to catch up or want to play through the story, it just depends what gameplay you're looking for. But I do recommend the console games if you're a fan of the Game Boy Advance. Sonic Advance 2. Now I think there's actually 3 releases of the Sonic Advance series. This one has Knuckles, I see, and Tails, and kind of recaptures a lot of the same gameplay or gaming experience that originally came out on the Genesis. And Sonic is a retro icon. I'm thankful they keep trying to push out his series every now and then. I think he could still use some updates and some more time spent to make his story and character better. But it's a fun series if you're a fan of Sonic and fast-paced, side-scrolling platformers. So check that one out. A-list. These are the ones I would definitely or play again because the story's really good, the gameplay's really good, and these are the ones I probably think of most when I start to think about Game Boy Advance. So all of the Donkey Kong series, I know they originally came out on the Super Nintendo, and that's still one of my favorite ways to play it is on the Super Nintendo. But again, it's awesome that they've made it available to be portable and take it with you. So I do have good memories of playing Donkey Kong Country 2 and 3 on the Game Boy Advance, and taking it with me, sharing it with my friends. That's why I'm ranking that as an A. So, you can have the debate, what was the better release, or what's the preferred way to play it? Is it Game Boy Advance? Is it Super Nintendo? Especially if you're emulating it today. Probably the Switch if they're going to upscale it and all that stuff. So it's up to you how you want to experience the game, but the story and the gameplay is equally as fun and good on the Game Boy Advance. They re-released Zelda. It was the game that got originally released on the Super Nintendo back in, was that 91? Shoot, I don't even remember now. That was one of my favorite Zelda releases I've ever played. I did play the original on the original Nintendo, but I never remember beating that one. That one had like hidden walls, and you kind of needed a Nintendo Power magazine to know how to actually beat the game. A Link to the Past is probably the most iconic as far as 2D Zelda goes, and was a huge success on the Super Nintendo. So also, again, I'm repeating myself a lot when I say they took what already worked best on the home console and brought it to a mobile gaming device. So definitely a Zelda, A Link to the Past, play that game no matter what console it's on. Mother 3, a interesting turn-based like Japanese RPG. I did not expect to really like originally. I thought, oh, this sounds boring as hell. You're just a bunch of kids. You're kind of like in a normal world, but then there's aliens that crash and like things get weird. But yeah, for the first time, it feels like you're not really playing as a superhero per se, but you're just these kids. Kind of gives me like Goonie vibes or Stranger Things, or like even the kids on the It movie that have these adventures and overcome evil type stuff. So it's a fun game, definitely fun. Check out the Mother series if you have not yet and you enjoy JRPGs. Golden Sun and Golden Sun, the Lost Age. I think there's 3 games total in that series that I'm aware of. I recently just beat and mastered the first Golden Sun on Retro Achievements. Yay! It was fun. Turn-based RPG. If you're a fan of Final Fantasy, you'll probably enjoy those games as well. They have magic elements that relate to planetary powers like Mercury and Jupiter and Venus, and they like oppose each other. So there's a little bit of like light and dark balance you have to kind of figure out of what's super effective and what's resistant. It's not too hard, and you can develop your powers differently, so it's like a little bit customizable. Very fun game. You're kind of just these kids in a village that these towers get lit. Someone's trying to reawaken this power. I'm not going to give away too many spoilers, but definitely go check that game out if you love story-rich role-playing games in the style of like Final Fantasy turn-based RPGs. So check out Golden Sun. Metroid Fusion. I could maybe sometimes even rank that one on the S tier because that's like where they almost perfected 2D Metroid. And I, again, won't give away too many spoilers. I liked just the little bit extra, like the evolution of Samus that they do with that character. And this is kind of like one of the final, well, I shouldn't even say that. I haven't played some of the newer Metroid games yet. So I just really appreciated all the quality of life upgrades they've done on that game versus some of the older games that needed some tweaking, like the save states and things that some people complain about on the original. But Metroid Fusion, definitely one of the top Metroid games to play, especially if you're into the 2D platforming style. So go play it. All right. Now we're getting to the S tier, the games that I will probably play over and over for the rest of my life if I come back to Game Boy Advance. I will start off talking about the Dragon Ball games because after the first Legacy of Goku, they needed redemption. And oh boy, did Legacy of Goku 2 just knock it out of the park. Like they fixed the gameplay mechanics, the hits actually felt like hits, it felt good. All these different characters that you know and love from the series. You have the Kamehameha, you have Masenko, you have Super Beam Cannon, you got it all, baby. And I love that game. It's such a fun section of the series and a lot of people's favorite as well, dealing with Cell and the androids. And I think you get a little bit of like what was it, Mecha Frieza and stuff. So you get some of like those legendary battles that you just waited into anticipation for on the series, and some of them on the movies because they weren't really on the series. It's a very fun way to experience the Dragon Ball storyline if you don't want to go back and watch all the anime. So again, I wish they could kind of like mod or remake the original Legacy of Goku so it plays more like Legacy of Goku 2. Then that whole series would be nearly perfect. But definitely, I would recommend people start with Legacy of Goku 2 if you want the enjoyable experience, and go play like the Frieza saga, like I said earlier, maybe on Budokai or something. I think that would be more fun. That's just what I would recommend. So then they perfected it coming out with the last one, which it's funny they didn't call it Legacy of Goku 3 because I felt like they needed more distance away from Legacy of Goku because that game bombed and it's not so enjoyable. But they called this one Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury, which is the sequel to Legacy of Goku 2. That covers the Boo saga and also part of the how much of the Android and Cell stuff, I don't even remember again. Those two kind of merge together because I always just start with Legacy of Goku 2, and as soon as that's done, I go right into Boo's Fury. And I love both those story sections so much. It's so much fun. They got storylines going on in the other world with Janimba and some of those, again, huge bosses that you remember, like Goku and Vegeta having to fuse together and be Gogeta to take down these super powerful aliens. So I just love Dragon Ball Z. I love the action RPG elements that they put on the Game Boy Advance games of the series. So highly recommend starting with Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku 2 and then playing Boo's Fury. The next game I'll talk about on the S list is Zelda Minish Cap. That one caught me by surprise. I never even heard of it until I got into my adult years. I must have been going to school or something when it came out, and I missed it completely. But that one, when I first played it, felt like the true spiritual sequel of A Link to the Past, just because I haven't played a lot of those other in-between Zelda games. And they just made the upgrades that I thought they needed upgrading. It had cute elements where you shrunk down and interacted with the Minish, kind of like these mysterious mystical creatures that you can't really see if you're big. And they had like a fun collectible thing that you had to do in the game to unlock stuff. I don't know. They just incorporated a lot in that Minish Cap game. So it was quirky. It was fun. The story was a blast to play through. Another action RPG type game that I really like. Definitely recommend playing the Minish Cap. The next game, Final Fantasy VI. Now, this is one of those games that were released on many consoles, so there's many options on how to play this game. I don't know necessarily if the Game Boy Advance option is the best version of it. However, if it is the only version, I still highly recommend you play that game. It's an excellent storyline, one of my favorite Final Fantasy releases. If you're going to consider a different option or different way of playing it, maybe pick it up on Steam. There's a few mods out there now that update the graphics. It updates a few quality of life features, and I think it even might offer voice acting now. Some of these older retro games, there's a whole community of modders that are now doing voice acting and putting that in the game. So do a bit of research on figuring out the best way to experience Final Fantasy VI. I do have a playlist on my channel that I played through one of the mods called A World Reborn, which updated a few of the graphics and such. So just however you can play it, go play Final Fantasy VI. The best Pokemon release on the Game Boy Advance, probably Fire Red, in my opinion. It's a remake of the original Pokemon Red, and going back to classic Pokemon, the original, this is where it just kind of updated the graphics, updated a few of the gameplay features, and it just, again, a nostalgic game that took you back to the original. So if you're not really into all the newer Pokemon stuff, because I'm trying to remember after what generation, I just got fatigued. I'm like, oh, really? An ice cream cone Pokemon? Get out of here. So, probably after Emerald, maybe, is what I would say. So anything pre-Emerald, actually, I'll take that back. I did give Pokemon Black and White a shot, and I really did enjoy that. So maybe that's where I'm going to start cutting off my Pokemon fandom stuff. So just going back to just enjoyable Pokemon games, Fire Red is one of the ones I highly recommend if you're going to play retro Pokemon. Okay, last but not least, I'll talk about Metroid Zero Mission. This is the remake of the original Metroid. So unless you're just some Super Nintendo fanboy that loves that console, loves those graphics, loves that style of gameplay with the quirks and like the difficulty, I'll even add to the old game, because it had places you could get locked in at that you'd have to start the game over, or it just wasn't as clear as far as the directions. This Zero Mission fixed a lot of those issues from the original Metroid while giving you the original story, or what basically happens in the first release of the game. I think this is the superior way to play Metroid, retro Metroid. And if you're a fan of the 2D style Metroid games, this is where you want to start. That's why I'm ranking it S, because this is where it originally released at least the remake of the initial game. And this is the best way to play that first storyline, in my opinion. So go play Metroid Zero Mission, and then play through some of the other games, and then finally, as you see on the A tier list, go play Fusion shortly thereafter. I'll wrap this up. I talked a little bit about each game on this list. I probably skipped a few I did play or vaguely remember playing on this wall below. But how about you give it a quick glance? Tell me what I missed, what your favorite games were that were released on the Game Boy Advance. And I will catch you on the next episode of Retro Video Games. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Play retro games.